Why do you weep for the betrayal of an illusion you spent years meticulously constructing with your own hands? You walk through a world populated not by living, breathing human beings, but by a pantheon of ghosts, gods, and monsters born entirely from your own unexamined deficits. The agony you feel right now is not the pain of losing someone you loved, it is the violent, shattering trauma of reality fracturing the pristine glass of your own projections. You forced another human being to carry the unbearable weight of your unlived life, your buried desires, and your deepest psychological vulnerabilities, treating them as a blank canvas for your personal salvation. When they inevitably stumbled under that unnatural burden and exposed their flawed, autonomous reality, you felt a profound sense of abandonment, failing to realize that the person you are mourning never actually existed outside the confines of your own desperate mind. This devastating rupture is not an external catastrophe, but an internal execution, the sudden, brutal death of a psychological surrogate. You have structured your entire emotional economy around the quiet, manipulative demand that the people around you conform to the scripts you wrote for them in the dark corners of your unconscious. You sought safety and predictability, turning your partner, your friend, or your parent into an idealized sanctuary where your deepest insecurities could remain safely medicated and hidden from view. Now, as you stand amidst the wreckage of this shattered expectation, you are confronted with a terrifying, suffocating void that forces you to question your own sanity and perception. This script is not a gentle balm for your wounded ego, but an uncompromising excavation of the mechanisms by which you substitute fantasy for genuine relationship. If you possess the rare courage to endure this confrontation, we shall dismantle the machinery of your false perceptions to reveal why discovering the truth of who people actually are is the most agonizing, yet liberating, threshold of your psychological development. 1. The anatomy of the psychological mirror. You do not see the world as it is, you see it as you are, endlessly populating your environment with fragments of your own unacknowledged psyche. When you encounter another person, your conscious ego immediately seeks comfort, but your unconscious seeks a mirror, instantly casting that individual into a predetermined role that fulfills your hidden emotional necessities. This is the phenomenon of projection, an involuntary, automatic mechanism where your own disowned qualities, both your darkest impulses and your highest, unfulfilled potentials, are superimposed onto the external world. You believe you are genuinely perceiving the other person, analyzing their traits and celebrating their virtues, but you are merely looking at a screen upon which your own internal drama is being vividly projected. The intense fascination or deep affection you feel in the initial stages of a relationship is rarely a response to the actual human being standing before you, it is the intoxicating vertigo of falling in love with your own estranged soul, temporarily housed in the body of a stranger. By refusing to look inward at your own unresolved voids, you turn the people around you into involuntary actors, forcing them to wear masks that you crafted in the silent depths of your own psychological isolation. This process is not a harmless romantic fantasy, but a profound act of psychological blindness that actively strips the other person of their humanity and autonomy. You establish a subtle, unspoken tyranny, demanding that they remain perfectly aligned with the image you have generated, effectively forbidden from possessing any thoughts, flaws, or desires that contradict your internal narrative. The moment they exhibit a trait that does not fit your carefully curated gallery, a cold spike of anxiety or resentment pierces your consciousness, which you mistakenly interpret as their failure rather than your own misperception. You are terrified of the raw, unpredictable reality of the other person because it threatens to expose the fact that you have been using them as an emotional shield against your own inner chaos. As long as you remain trapped within this hall of mirrors, you are incapable of true intimacy, for you are not relating to an external reality, but holding a perpetual monologue with your own projected needs. The pain you experience when this illusion begins to fray is the terrifying realization that you are utterly alone in a room full of ghosts, suddenly forced to confront the vast, neglected landscape of your own empty interiority. 2. The tyranny of the unconscious ideal. From the earliest moments of your development, your conscious mind began splitting itself into acceptable and unacceptable fragments, burying your deepest longings, fears, and unmet needs beneath a thick shroud of psychological repression. This hidden reservoir, the unlived life you were too afraid or ill-equipped to express, does not remain dormant, it hungers for manifestation and actively hunts for an external vessel to carry its weight. If you are deeply insecure and disconnected from your own inner authority, you will unconsciously seek out a figure of absolute strength, transforming an ordinary, fragile human being into an infallible deity of protection. If you have disowned your own capacity for passion, creativity, or emotional intensity, you will find yourself magnetically drawn to someone who embodies these traits, instantly worshipping them as a savior who can complete your fragmented existence. You do not notice the subtle, insidious bargain you are making. You grant them total dominion over your emotional well-being in exchange for the privilege of never having to develop those disowned qualities within yourself. This is the birth of the false version, an artificial archetype constructed entirely out of your own psychological poverty, forced upon someone who is completely unaware of the spiritual contract you have signed on their behalf. This artificial ideal functions as a psychological dictatorship, requiring a constant, exhausting distortion of reality to maintain its fragile equilibrium. You actively filter out their inconsistencies, excuse their emotional cruelty, and reinterpreting their obvious red flags as mere eccentricities, all to protect the integrity of the idol you have manufactured. You become an obsessive curator of their identity, magnifying every detail that supports your illusion while violently suppressing any evidence that suggests they are ordinary, flawed, or indifferent to your plight. This is a deeply exhausting way to live, a continuous expenditure of psychic energy dedicated to keeping the terrifying truth at bay, that this person cannot save you, cannot complete you, and cannot heal the foundational wounds of your childhood. You have built a temple of expectations upon a foundation of sand, and you live in constant, low-grade terror of the inevitable storm that will knock it down. The tyranny of this ideal ensures that any genuine connection is completely strangled, replaced by a rigid, fragile transaction where you worship a fiction and secretly resent the real person for failing to live up to it. 3. The violence of stripping autonomy. To create a false version of another human being is not an act of devotion, it is a profound, albeit quiet, act of psychological violence that completely erases their objective reality. You are, in essence, refusing to allow them to exist as a separate, sovereign entity with their own distinct history, shadows, and evolutionary path. Instead, you reduce their complex, multidimensional humanity to a two-dimensional caricature designed solely to satisfy your personal appetite for security, validation, or companionship. When you tell someone, "You are my entire world," or "You are exactly who I thought you were," you are not honoring them, you are placing them in an emotional straitjacket, warning them that any departure from your internal script will be met with severe emotional withdrawal or punishing guilt. You create a psychological prison where their only options are to suffocatingly conform to your projection or violently shatter your heart by asserting their true nature. This is a deeply manipulative dynamic, born from your ego's desperate need to control its environment and avoid the messy, unpredictable, and often painful reality of authentic human relating. Consider the profound burden you place upon the object of your projection, forcing them to walk on eggshells through the minefield of your unspoken expectations. They can sense, either consciously or unconsciously, that they are not truly loved for who they are, but are merely valued for how well they play the role you have assigned to them. They know that if they show you their true shadow, their pettiness, their exhaustion, their selfishness, or their doubt, your affection will instantly evaporate, replaced by the cold fury of a betrayed idealist. This realization forces them to either wear a mask of exhausting perfection to keep you stable, or to resent you deeply for the invisible cage you have constructed around them. By refusing to see them clearly, you deny them the most fundamental human right, the right to be flawed, inconsistent, and real. You have traded a genuine relationship with a living being for a sterile, controlled interaction with an emotional puppet, ensuring that both of you remain profoundly isolated, locked in a dance of mutual deception where real intimacy is utterly impossible. 4. The shadow's rebellion against the fiction. The human psyche possesses an inherent, unstoppable drive toward wholeness and truth, a regulatory mechanism that fiercely resists any attempt to impose a permanent lie upon reality. Just as your own repressed shadow periodically erupts in moments of uncontrollable rage, anxiety, or self-sabotage, the objective reality of the person you have idealized will inevitably revolt against the fiction you have forced them to inhabit. No one can play a god, a savior, or a perfect saint indefinitely. The weight of the archetype is too heavy, and the natural, chaotic impulses of the human shadow will always find a way to break through. This rebellion often manifests in sudden, shocking deviations from their expected behavior, a sudden burst of cold indifference, an act of overt selfishness, or a betrayal that seems completely out of character to your romanticized perception. These moments are not random aberrations, they are the explosive, necessary self-assertion of their true, autonomous psyche, violently shattering the artificial mold you attempted to cast them in. When this inevitable rebellion occurs, your immediate psychological response is not curiosity or understanding, but a profound, defensive sense of shock and victimization. Your ego recoils in horror, screaming that you have been deceived, lied to, and blindsided by a master manipulator, because admitting the truth would require you to acknowledge your own complicity in the illusion. You blame them entirely for breaking the contract, refusing to see that it was a contract they never signed, formulated entirely within the secretive chambers of your own unconscious mind. The hostility you feel toward them in this moment is actually a displaced self-loathing. You are furious that reality has broken your narcotic slumber and forced you to look at the world without the comforting filter of your projections. The shadow of the other person has risen up to smash your idols, not to ruin your life, but to violently liberate both of themselves and you from the deadening weight of an unsustainable lie. It is a necessary, albeit agonizing, correction of the psychological balance, a cruel mercy designed to drag you out of your solipsistic fantasy and drop you face first into the cold, hard soil of objective truth. 5. The agony of the fractured lens. When the illusion finally collapses entirely, the experience is not one of gentle awakening, but of a profound, disorienting psychic trauma that feels like a literal fracturing of your reality. The world you thought you knew vanishes in an instant, replaced by a chaotic landscape where you can no longer trust your own instincts, your own memories, or your own eyes. You look at the person who sat across from you for years, and they suddenly appear as an utter stranger, a terrifying blank space that your mind desperately struggles to comprehend or categorize. This is the agony of the fractured lens, the realization that the historical narrative you constructed about your life, your choices, and your relationships was built entirely upon a foundation of self-generated myth. You begin to question every conversation, every shared smile, and every promise, wondering if any of it was real, or if you were simply an elite playwright directing a tragic performance in an empty theater. The pain is so intense because it exposes your total vulnerability, revealing that you are completely capable of deceiving yourself thoroughly for months, years, or even decades. This state of disorientation is a profound crisis of the ego, which thrives on predictability, control, and the comforting illusion that it understands its environment. To discover that you created a false version of someone means admitting that your conscious judgment is profoundly flawed, easily blinded by the primitive, subterranean currents of your unconscious desires. It is a humiliating defeat for your pride. You must face the fact that you were not a discerning judge of character, but an easy mark for your own internal wish fulfillment. The agonizing grief you feel is for the death of the comforting narrative that protected you from loneliness, meaninglessness, or the necessity of taking responsibility for your own life. You are suddenly stripped of your psychological armor, left raw and exposed to the realization that you cannot outsource your salvation to anyone else. The shattered lens cannot be repaired, you cannot unsee the truth, and you are forced to stand in the ruins of your beautiful lie, shivering in the cold wind of a reality that cares absolutely nothing for your comfort. 6. The archetypal trap of the anima and animus. To truly understand why you are so susceptible to creating these false versions of others, we must look beneath your personal history and venture into the deep, collective structures of the human psyche. Deep within your unconscious mind lies an ancient, archetypal blueprint of the opposite gender, the anima in a man, the animus in a woman, which represents the totality of your unconscious relation to the soul and the divine. These archetypes possess an immense, intoxicating psychic energy. They are the inner image of the perfect partner, the ultimate guide, and the source of absolute meaning and vitality. When you encounter someone who possesses even a slight physical or psychological resonance with this internal image, the archetype instantly detaches from your unconscious and fastens itself onto that person like a parasitic entity. You do not see a human being, you see the living embodiment of the anima or animus, a walking goddess or a transcendent king, and you are instantly overwhelmed by a profound, magnetic fascination that feels destiny-driven and cosmic. This is the ultimate psychological trap, for no human being can ever hope to compete with, let alone embody, a collective archetype of the unconscious. You have inadvertently demanded that an ordinary mortal possess the infinite depth, the perfect wisdom, and the eternal grace of a psychological deity, setting them up for a spectacular, catastrophic failure. The person carrying this projection is trapped in an impossible dilemma. They are worshipped for a divine aura they do not actually possess, and they know that the moment their human limitations become visible, they will be cast down into the underworld of your absolute contempt. The agony you feel when they fail is the shock of realizing that your cosmic soulmate is simply a regular person who gets tired, makes mistakes, and worries about trivial things. You feel cheated by the universe, failing to realize that the divine magic you experienced did not belong to that person at all, but was a treasure from your own unconscious that you mistakenly left at their feet. Until you learn to consciously integrate your own anima or animus, you will continue to cycle through these intense, doomed relationships, endlessly searching for a god in the bodies of mortals, and always finding only wreckage. 7. The neurotic refuge from true intimacy. We must speak with absolute honesty about the hidden, cowardly motive behind your tendency to construct these false versions of the people in your life. It is your ultimate defense mechanism against the terrifying reality of genuine intimacy. True intimacy requires you to stand naked and undefended before another autonomous human being, exposing your real shadow, your profound vulnerabilities, and your messy imperfections to someone who has the total freedom to reject or abandon you. This level of exposure is absolutely terrifying to the fragile ego, which will do almost anything to avoid the existential risk of being truly seen and weighed as wanting. To protect yourself from this vulnerability, you unconsciously choose to fall in love with, or become attached to, a fiction of your own creation rather than the actual person. A fiction is safe, a fiction can be manipulated, predicted, and managed. A fiction does not possess an independent will that can suddenly decide to leave you or point out your hypocrisy. By relating to a projection, you remain completely insulated within the safe, controlled fortress of your own mind, completely avoiding the unpredictable currents of a real relationship. You have transformed your relationships into a sophisticated psychological defense strategy, using the idealized image of the other person to keep them at a safe, unthreatening distance. You praise their perfection so you never have to deal with their messy reality, and when they inevitably fail to meet your impossible standards, you use their betrayal as a perfect excuse to withdraw, validate your cynicism, and avoid deep connection altogether. It is a profoundly neurotic cycle. You create a false version, mourn its inevitable demise, blame the other person for the deception, and then retreat back into your isolation, proudly proclaiming that no one is trustworthy or capable of loving you. You are using the pain of your shattered illusions to protect yourself from the far deeper, more transformative pain of real emotional exposure. You have chosen the sterile, agonizing security of a psychological prison over the wild, dangerous, and redemptive landscape of authentic love, preferring to weep over a broken idol than to do the hard, humbling work of loving a flawed, real human being. The alchemical fire of individuation. The shattering of your illusions, though it feels like an unmitigated disaster that is tearing your soul apart, is actually the most vital, saving grace of your entire psychological life. This agonizing process is the precise mechanism of the alchemical fire, the painful but necessary burning away of the ego's false assumptions so that the true gold of the self can finally emerge. As long as your projections remain intact, you are psychically asleep, living a derivative existence where your growth is completely stunted because you are outsourcing your consciousness to the people around you. The moment reality violently tears that projection away, it forces the psychic energy that you had invested in the other person to snap back into your own center, returning to its rightful source. The pain you are experiencing is the intense friction of this energy reintegrating into your own psyche, demanding that you finally become the strength, the passion, or the wisdom that you were trying to steal from someone else. This is the terrifying threshold of individuation, the psychological journey toward becoming the unique, whole individual you were always meant to be. The destruction of the false version of others forces you to finally look down into the empty abyss of your own soul and take absolute, unconditional responsibility for filling it yourself. You must learn to mourn the illusion without bitterness, recognizing that the person who broke your heart was merely an innocent instrument used by your unconscious to wake you up from your narcissistic slumber. When you can look at the person who let you down and say, "Thank you for refusing to be my idol, thank you for forcing me to stand on my own feet," you have successfully transformed poison into medicine. You are being initiated into a higher state of consciousness, stripped of your childish dependencies so that you can finally enter the world as a mature, sovereign individual, capable of seeing reality without illusions and loving people for who they actually are. To stand in the stark, unvarnished light of truth after a lifetime of living among comfortable illusions is a profoundly lonely and unsettling experience. You now realize that the person you constructed, the one you fought for, wept over, and blamed for your profound misery, was nothing more than a ghost born from your own unhealed history and disowned potentials. The pain of this realization cannot be bypassed, ignored, or medicated away. It must be endured completely until it burns through the last remnants of your egoic pride and childish entitlement. You are no longer permitted the luxury of playing the innocent victim of someone else's deception, for you now see your own heavy hand in the creation of the very trap that ensnared you. This marks the definitive end of your psychological childhood, a brutal but necessary eviction from the garden of naive fantasies into the vast, demanding wilderness of objective reality. The transformation required of you now is to hold this awareness without collapsing into cynical despair, learning to sit with the profound discomfort of a world that is completely outside of your control, yet entirely rich with genuine, unmapped potential. If this severe confrontation with your inner world has shattered the comfortable mirrors you have hidden behind, if you have found the rare, bleeding courage to recognize your own desperate hand in the creation of the ghosts that haunt your relationships, then you have taken the first terrifying step toward a real, unshakable consciousness. Do not allow your ego to close this wound and retreat back into the numbing safety of your old illusions. Subscribe to this channel immediately, and join the small, resolute minority of souls who dare to look directly into the blinding light of psychological truth. Leave a comment below detailing the precise moment your own illusions fractured, and confess the specific fiction you forced someone else to carry to protect yourself from your own empty spaces. Let us speak openly in the comments about the idols we have built and smashed, refusing to hide any longer from the heavy, beautiful burden of our own individuation.